बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम।
अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर। अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदर रसूलुल्लाह, अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदर रसूलुल्लाह। हय्या अलस्सलाह, हय्या अलस्सलाह, हय्या अलफलाह, हय्या अलफलाह। अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह।
अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह वहदहु ला शरीका लह व अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदन अब्दुहु व रसूल। अम्मा बअदु फअऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। Before I start the khutbah, I want to request you to pray for the whole humanity, anyone who is sick or facing any kind of hardship or difficulty. A number of people have specifically asked us to pray for them. Our brother Jeline in Italy, our brother Ali and his family, and sister Amtul in Malaysia have specially asked for our prayers. But I request you to pray for our members of our Jamaat, especially those who are in those countries where there are only a few of them, like Ireland and Cuba and Florida and so on, who are struggling but still working hard for the cause of the Jamaat. The title of this khutbah I have given as Justice and State Relations, and in this context I want to recite chapter 5 start with chapter 5 verse 8. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خير تعملون. O you who believe, be upright for Allah, bearers of witness with justice, and let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably. Be just, that is nearer to observance of duty, and keep your duty to Allah. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. The next recitation is chapter 16, verses 90 and 91. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i zil qurba wa yanha anil fahsya'i wal munkari wal baghi يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها وقد جعلتم الله عليكم كفيلا إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون. Surely Allah enjoins justice and the doing of good to others and the giving to the kindred, and He forbids indecency and evil and rebellion. He admonishes you that you may be mindful and fulfill the covenant of Allah. When you have made a covenant, and break not the oaths after making them fast, and you have indeed made Allah your surety. Surely Allah knows what you do. And then chapter 55, verses 7 to 9. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. And the heavens He raised it high, and He set up the balance or the measure, that you may not exceed the measure, and keep up the balance with equity, and fall not short in the measure. These verses generally people take to be about individuals, about our dealings with our neighbors and friends and relatives and so on. But I agree with that, yes. One aspect of these verses is that they apply to our dealings with the individuals. As I said, our neighbors and colleagues and friends and relatives and everyone else. But I cannot see why their application should be limited to relations between the individuals. I believe that they also apply to relations between I don't know, between sects, between religions, between the groups living in a country, but also between nations and countries as well. Well, I mean, let's take one verse. It says, and fulfill the covenant of Allah when you have made a covenant, and break not oaths after making them fast. So you think that if I have a contract with my neighbor or someone else, I shouldn't break that contract. But if United Kingdom or United States or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or some country, they have a contract with another country, it's okay for them to break it. Why should that be? And that is what I mean. One company, a company looking for gas or oil or something, enters into a contract with the government. We look for these things in your seas, on your land. Would it be okay for that company to break that contract, or that country to break that contract? Of course not. Although generally these verses have been applied to individual circumstances, I strongly believe and feel that we should extend their application internationally. Relations between states. Supposing country A enters into some kind of a treaty with country B, and then country A breaks that treaty, and they now want to enter into a treaty with country D. Would country D trust country A? Of course they won't. And this is what happens in international relations, that we try and have these promises and these treaties when it's convenient for us. When it's convenient for country A, they'll enter into a contract with country B. But when it becomes inconvenient, they'll find some excuse to go back on their word. An obvious example is that, there is international law which forbids regime change by force. And by that, I mean that governments and countries outside of some country, Libya or Iraq, want a regime change, and they use force for that regime change. Now, that is international law. Everyone has signed up to it. And yet, at the same time, Britain allowed American bombers to take off from its air bases in the UK to go and bomb Libya. General Gaddafi, whom they were trying to murder, wasn't home, so he survived, but his young son was killed. How many in the media in the West lamented the killing of Gaddafi's son? How many said this is an act of war? How many said this is an act of terrorism? And those involved should be punished? Not one single person. So why should I trust countries like that? Why should I enter into agreements with them? What moral standing do they have? There are small sentences in the Holy Quran which lead to big consequences if you act upon them, and big consequences, worse consequences, terrifying consequences if you don't act on them. One verse I read out was, let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably. Be just. That is nearer to observing your duty to Allah. What happened after the First World War? The Americans and the British and the French, they hated the Germans. The Allies, as they were called, had to spend huge amounts on the First World War. And they didn't care what happened to Germany. They didn't care what happened to German people. They wanted their pound of flesh. And they entered into a treaty asking Germany to pay war reparations, while at the same time depriving Germany of its lands, which had natural resources and industries and so on. And of course, the only thing Germans could do to keep to that treaty was print money, which they did, because the treaty was that Germany will pay so many marks every year, and not pounds or dollars. So Germans just printed their own currency and gave it to the Allied power. What happened? It led to gross inflation. It led to unemployment, which resulted in extremism and which resulted in a party with extremist views coming to power in Germany. That violation of this verse of the Holy Quran, let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably, led to Second World War, complete annihilation of Germany and Japan. Britain was, and Britain and French and Belgium and Holland were also annihilated to a large measure, as was Italy. If they'd behaved magnanimously, like the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he entered into Makkah, and all those people who tortured him, who abused him, who threw rubbish over him, were brought to him, and he asked them, what do you think is going to happen to you today? And he forgave all of them. He forgave all of them. After the Second World War, the Allied powers went back to acting on this verse of the Holy Quran, let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably. And they helped Germany rebuild, they helped Japan rebuild. And in a large measure, we had peace in Europe. And God says that God has created balance. There is balance of natural forces, but there's also balance of emotion and relationships and understanding. Not just between individuals, but also between groups and between countries and religions and sects and so on. I want to end by giving you an example. Last spring, there was a journalist called Shireen Abu Ikla, an American citizen. There were, I think, 5 or 6 of them. They worked for Al Jazeera. And they were in Palestine. And they were covering reports, news from there and so on. And there was firing. And Shireen Abu Ikla was killed. And Americans did nothing. She was an American citizen, and the US government did nothing. Compare this with the arrest of an American in Pakistan, in Lahore, who shot dead Pakistanis, who was being tried for murder, and Americans twisted the Pakistani government's arm until it broke to release that murderer and let him go back to America. Compare this with the American who was driving down the road on the wrong side and killed a young British person, 19-year-old, I think he was, coming on a motorbike. She was allowed to leave UK on concocted diplomatic immunity. And it took a long and expensive campaign by her parents to bring her to justice. And she was tried, and she appeared before the court by camera in America from Washington, D.C. And this young man's parents still didn't get justice. He was given a 9-month suspended sentence for driving carelessly and killing a young man and depriving his family of the happiness of seeing him grow up and get married and have children. But I take my hats off to his mother and father, who made it their life's aim to bring this woman to justice, some kind of justice. Now, she'd been reporting from Israel and Palestine for more than 20 years for Al Jazeera. She was shot through her helmet, and it was told that this happened because there was an exchange of fire between the Israeli army and what Israel calls terrorists. And she got caught. Al Jazeera investigated and found that this was a false story, concocted. By the way, Israel decided not to have an inquiry or investigation to see what actually happened. And when Al Jazeera found that its journalists, 5 or 6 of them who were there, were deliberately targeted by the Israeli army, there was no attack upon Israeli army by Palestinians. Because of their critical reporting, these people were targeted, and this person was killed. They decided to go to the International Criminal Court. But the US State Department has strongly opposed this. Which is very interesting, because they have actually, while opposing Israel being taken to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for invading Palestine and other atrocities, Americans have reported Russia to the ICC for attacking Ukraine. What's the difference? Why oppose one and recommend the other. And the most interesting thing is that Washington, that this all happens under something called the Rome Treaty or the Rome Statute. And countries sign up to it. And guess which countries have not signed up to it? Yes, you've got it. United States. While refusing to sign the Rome Statute, and the US Army soldiers have been reported to ICC for atrocities in Afghanistan and Iraq. And US has been bullying the International Criminal Court not to conduct these investigations. And US has frankly said it will never allow the Israeli army or officials to be investigated for terrorist acts. At least the US Department of Justice asked the FBI to open an investigation into the murder by the Israeli army of an innocent American citizen. And who is obstructing that? That request by the Department of Justice in the United States? Yes, the US State Department. And Israel, that has refused to hold its own inquiry, which would have come up with the conclusion that, the army was innocent and this sniper armed with a submachine gun 2 miles away was so terrified by this reporter carrying a camera that he feared his life was in danger and decided to shoot her dead 2 miles away. But I guess they've saved money on that. And Israel has strongly denounced this investigation. Why? An American citizen is unlawfully killed by your army. So why isn't the American government allowed to investigate this, to find out the reasons? And as I said, why is it that Israeli authorities have not carried out their own investigation? This is just the latest in a long line. Mr. Ariel Sharon attacked southern Lebanon and blatantly murdered hundreds of Palestinian women and children. He was never reported to ICC or tried at the ICC. But presidents of African countries who were accused of torturing and killing people, once they were removed from government, they were happily tried by ICC. And this falls under this heading. Let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably, because Jews hate Palestinians. This is why they're behaving this way. It's not the other way around. Then God says, Allah enjoins justice and doing of good. He forbids indecency and evil and rebellion. This applies to what happened to this lady. And again, fulfill covenant of Allah. Break not the oaths after making them fast. And then God gives the example of heavens and earth, that they're all created according to a measure in balance. And if you disturb that balance, moon will crash into the earth, or earth will crash into Mars. probably destroying the whole of the solar system. But the same thing happens to relationships between human beings and groups and countries. That we create unnatural hatred in our hearts for others, for whatever reason, might be their color, might be their religion, might be their sect, whatever it is. And we think we are doing something great for God. No, we are not. The world will continue to suffer. There'll never be any peace in Israel unless the first condition that of there being justice for every single person, regardless of their religion, sect, color, is established and implemented and seen to be implemented so that people can have confidence. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barraufur rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya al salah, hayya al falah, qad qamati salah, qad qamati salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. ربنا Thank you for joining us for today's service. Please don't take it to mean that the relations between Muslim states are conducted in line with these verses of the Holy Quran. They are not. So we need to set an example to others of how international relations can be conducted in accordance with these verses of the Holy Quran. I take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.